How's it going today, guys? Behind me is the start of my train layout, and I've already done a lot of work of laying down the way that I'm going to want the track, and laying the foam down, kind of the placement of some of the buildings, and I started a mountain in the back here, and I'm going to do a little hill over here. But I kind of just wanted to start this as a way to document the progress, and maybe help some other people out that don't know a plan to attack on how to do their layout. And I'm very much an amateur. I'm not going to deny that. So there are things that I'm going to do wrong that I might not do the same as everyone else. But I think that that's the beauty of the hobby, is that it doesn't really matter how you do it, as long as you get to the end and vision of what you're thinking of in your mind. Then that's really all that matters. And my mountain behind me, I really put a lot of thought into it, of overthinking it. The base layer is cardboard lattice, and with plaster cloth over it. And then the top part, I started to do stacking up with foam just to get a little bit more volume. Put plaster cloth over that, and then I decided I wanted a little bit more definition. So I started out with some packing paper, which I'll follow up with some newspaper. Put plaster cloth over that, and then on one of my rock ledges, I'm going to do some plaster rocks that I got from a fellow train enthusiast, or a very good friend that has helped me out a lot with some of my stuff. Primarily, this is kind of just an intro of around the layout, kind of what I'm running. I'm still on a conventional system. I haven't decided whether I wanted to go with like an MTH TIU, or if I wanted to jump into the legacy cab 1 remote or anything like that, or even the new base 3 that came out. So pretty much all my stuff right now is conventional. I do have a couple Lion Chief stuff for the kids. They really enjoy the train layout, especially around the holidays. We put one up around the tree. Post-war is kind of where I started out, and that's where I started my collection. I like to go to a couple train shows. I did go to Monroeville this past year, and I went to the Canfield one. I picked up a lot of good things. I picked up a 681 turbine, and picked up a couple box cars and rolling stock. And I love Facebook finds, marketplace, just kind of anywhere that I can get a good deal. Because at the end of the day, I want this to be something that that my kids can enjoy, and I feel that if I spend a lot of money on an engine, I don't really want them breaking it. But if I maybe only have 60 or 80 bucks in an engine that is a lot less worrisome, that if they drop it, then it's still a toy. And then that way they can get the satisfaction of playing with the trains, and only grow their love for the hobby. I've just recently got into doing this, so like I said before, I am no means an expert. I am very, very much a novice, but it's a great community. I have learned a lot. There are some things on my layout that I've 3D printed. So some of the stuff is scratch built that I've picked up, and it's just stuff that we're going to go through. I have totes and totes and totes of stuff. I think that my scene is going to shade more towards the industrial, hence the backdrop. And I have a big Chesapeake sand company. building that was a G scale building, and I am doing things that I can do to bring it back into O scale, which is primarily what I run. So I have 3D printed some roll up doors, some steps, some windows, just to kind of bring that back into perspective as much as I can. So yeah, let's walk you around the layout. So currently this is what I was talking about with the stacking of the foam and making it the upper portion of my mountain. This lower portion is going to be, I think it's going to be a camping scene that I'm going to do. I have a couple Woodland Scenics camping or campers with a tent, and I was thinking about picking up the shack. This is the bottom portion of the tunnel that was done with plaster cloth, some stacking of the foam there to kind of make a rock ledge, and then you can kind of see the cardboard lattice up in there, which worked out really well. I saw it on a couple different people's layouts, and then I did the test ballast there because there again it's nothing that I've done before, so I wanted to try to do it somewhere where it wasn't going to be the main focal point, and everything that I did worked out really well. So that's definitely what I'm going to do going through it. Here is the Chesapeake Sand Company building that I picked up that was G scale, and I printed a platform with some steps, door, window, and then I also did roll-up doors. And then there's a piece of track that goes all the way over there, and I have to move this in order to get to the mountain up in the back. I'm using the realistic backgrounds that I picked up at a local train shop, and so the cloud scene on the top, and I'm going to do a foundry, more industrial scene on the bottom. And this is the train shed that I'm going to be working on, and there is a train engine that I 3D printed along with the storage tank and some chain link fence, and you can kind of see in there that I printed some steps, and that's I'm gonna build a base platform, and we're gonna make that look like a nice workshop. That's also one of my pickups that I got from a local train shop, which is a New York Central 221. It's one of my favorite style locomotives, and I hope to be able to get maybe the legacy one in the future, but that's in the future, nothing current. Some of the silos and stuff that's going to go next to the building, next to the Sand Company building. I got a couple manual switches to go off into. This is an MTH shipping and receiving dock. That this little turnout right here is just going to be pretty much a staging area, and I did have my brother 3D print this little 10-inch section that I got off of Thingiverse because his printer was bigger than mine, and I potentially may run a second one right in here, but I haven't gauged that up to see how it's gonna work. And here are the Woodland Scenics campers that I was going to use for the camping scene. And then coming over here, I have the start of the other hill that I got to add a little bit of detail to, and I still got to glue it down. But yeah, it's 12 foot long, 4 foot wide, and then the little kick out is a 5 foot kick out, and all the curves are 036 fast track. that run to, I independently have them right now with the inner loop being controlled by the CW80, and then the outer loop is done on my ZW275, which I'm eventually going to put the inner loop on the other control for the ZW, and then I will run everything that needs auxiliary power off of possibly the 12 volt on the CW80, or pick up a power supply. So I'm going to add some lights to the Chesapeake building. I'm going to add lights to the the engine shed, and then the MTH building already has lights in it, but the guy that I picked it up from at the train show, he was telling me some tips and tricks that he did with putting lights up underneath where the doors, where they slide open, and then it'll have it shine down. So I think that that's one option that I'm going to do, and I think it's just really going to bring out the building. I picked it up at a great deal. I think I paid $40 for it, which I couldn't complain at all. There was a couple bumpers that are all 3D printed that you'll see. Anybody that's had the manual switches knows that these things are not a very good design, and as you see there, my stepson and I were playing with it, and we ended up breaking it, but it wasn't that big of a deal because I was able to find a file online and 3D printed one, and it works out great. Just gotta paint it. I'm gonna do a little bit of weathering to that, which is what some of these are. So it's all gonna be a first for me. It's not something that I normally do, but yeah, I appreciate you guys coming along with the journey, and let's run a couple trains. So what I plan to do on this is I'm going to cover this with some newspaper or some packing paper to give it a little bit more definition. I'm going to put a mountain scene behind here just to kind of flow into the industrial. What I did was I shaped it out, and then I stacked up my foam and hot glued it together, and I don't want the edges to be so quite defining, so all I'm going to do is take my razor blade, and this is why I didn't glue this down yet, is take my razor blade and just kind of work it up, scar it up, because no rock is going to be at a solid 90-degree angle. So you want to kind of just make it look as natural underneath as possible, because you want to think that it's going to hide whenever you put the plaster cloth on, but sometimes it does bring out the definition, which we are going to be covering up with the newspaper, but not all of it is going to be. So you just want to kind of scar this up and make it look like it's been out in the weather for a while. And I'm not going to do anything with covering the track just yet. I'll vacuum all that off, and then I'll cover the track whenever I'm working with a plaster cloth, because I want to try to keep it as clean as possible. And this is just insulation foam that you pick up at your local hardware store. I think I got the pink foam sheets. They're a little bit thicker at Menards. I think it was a 2 foot by 2 foot square for only $8. The green sheet, that was a 4 by 8 foot that I got. I want to say it's 3/4 inch, and that's actually what's underneath of my layout. I think it was like $25 a sheet at my Lowe's, or at my local Lowe's, and that's what's under my entire layout. And that's kind of what I started to use as a base. I do have a little bit of it left over, but a majority of the mountains were formed with this pink foam, and I did that just because I wanted the thicker foam for more shelf, and I thought that I was going to be able to obtain a nicer mountain that way. So we'll get this wiped off and get this all cleaned off, and we'll get this glued down. We're gonna try this multi-bond adhesive. I ended up getting this I ended up getting it on clearance, so I figured any way that I can save money while building this, that's kind of what I've been doing. A lot of the stuff that I get is secondhand. Very few have I bought firsthand. And you know, it's just one of those things that it doesn't hurt to be cost effective and conscientious when getting into the hobby. And I feel that if I do that, then I can put money maybe towards newer engines, more engines to run, different box cars that I like, or you know, just something that may catch my eye. And we're just gonna lay. And probably is a bit of overkill, but there again, I don't know exactly what I'm going to be putting on this, or how much it's going to have to hold, or how well this is going to hold. So this is a first for me trying this stuff. So we're line it up with the edge there, line it up with the edge there, and we're just going to press it in place, and seems like it grabbed pretty well, but we'll let that dry. And that was just kind of the start of what we're gonna do. Next time I'm gonna come back and go through of how I make the mountain, or how I add a little bit of texture. And I think I'm gonna use a mix of newspaper and packing paper, and before we put our cloth down. All right, so now that we have that's all glued down, now we're going to take some of our paper, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to start at the bottom and work along, leave a little bit of room for the ballast, and it's not really going to be real big defining boulders, but just something to give it a little bit extra texture. that's probably going to flow, you know, pretty decent right there. And it still leaves us enough room down around here where we'll be able to set some ballast up for the track. So let's get some plaster cloth cut up, and let's see if we can start getting this. And what we're gonna do, I'm gonna grab the painter's tape here. Doesn't really stick a whole bunch, but we're just gonna cover the track a little bit. Just to make sure when we lay that plaster cloth down, it doesn't get all over. I'll run. We can get this tape cooperating with me tonight. Alright, I don't plan on being that sloppy, so that should be more than enough. So this is the messy portion of it, but this is what I use. It's Navaris. I get a 6-pack of these on Amazon. I think it's like $13, and they don't really go a huge way, but you know, they go pretty quick. But the easiest way I found it to do is I have a off screen. I have the bucket to dunk it in. I'm gonna put it up here, but they just come in these rolls like this. I have a separate container that I keep these, and just to kind of make sure that just to make it a little bit easier of working, I'll just go and just cut it in strips of random lengths, just as something that I think is even, and that way you'll see in a minute. So when I go to do it, it's makes it a little bit easier, a little less messy. So you're not trying to cut the plaster while your hands are wet and have plaster over them. But we're going to start with one roll, and you know, see how that goes, and we should be able to make it last. I think we should be able to do this little hill with it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move these off camera, and then bring the tub on camera, and all I'm going to do is dunk it off of this, and then put it, lay it down over, and I'll start, up top and work it in and just go down as we go. And I just get it like that, and it doesn't have to stay flat. It's gonna bunch up on you a little bit, so just kind of shake it off and just start laying it. I do try to work it and lay it as flat as I can. That way it doesn't have anything gobbled up. I'll work it into those cracks and crevices. That way it can give a little bit of definition, just like that. And then dump the next piece, and I'm going to go over top of all this with Sculpt-A-Mold. So I just want to get the basic of it covered, just as a start. And then, I can go in and add a little bit more terrain, to be able to do a wash later on, with the painting. So I'll just go along the edge there like that. So, and really at first I was kind of nervous. I didn't know how all this was going to turn out. Never really worked with plaster cloth before, and I can definitely say that while it was there really wasn't a huge learning curve on it. I mean, you just kind of got to work it in, and it'll leave it some time to dry, and we don't mess with it, and it'll come out looking pretty decent. And this stuff, it can kind of be thin. You may have to go over and put a second coat on, which is no big deal, because they're also, it was pretty cheap at $13 for 6 rolls, and which I feel is relatively inexpensive for anything that you're trying to do in the hobby. But it's given it a nice rolling definition. Actually, I might have underestimated that one roll was going to be enough. I think we're probably gonna need to crack into a second one. But I just want to try to get everything on, everything covered. Now, as I'm working it down here, I'm still trying to give myself some room, and it's going to pull up and puddle up at the bottom. So just after I'm done with everything, I'll do a dry up with some blue shop towels. So, but it's just a lot of patience, and a lot of figuring out how you want the stuff to look, and really just a lot of trial and error. And I think that's the fun in it, is it might not work the way you wanted it to the first time, and that's okay, because just because it was it was a failure, or didn't go exactly how you wanted it to, you can still end up with a decent looking scene, or just an idea for next time. That worked in there. Got this last little piece right here. Across there. So, as you can see, we've gotten a lot of water accumulated down here, so we'll clean that up. And I'm not really worried about the edge of the track so much, because I'm going to be doing some coarse ballasting, and so that's all going to be covered up, and I'm going to do a little bit of color to it. So looks like we got just a little bit over there. So crack open another roll here. And these ones here, since I don't really have a lot, I'm going to cut them into smaller sections. That way I really can tuck them into those formations and boulders just a little bit easier, and not be wasting as much as if I don't have to. So I'll kind of go here, and yeah, that's a good size. That's pretty much, and I cut probably 5 or 6 of these ones, so we'll put it on the back. And what I'm just trying to do is just trying to make sure that all the foam's covered, and then making sure the tape and cardboard or paper and newspaper and all that's covered up. So and then the pieces that are a little too wide, you can scrunch it up and get it right. So, and we'll drag it out, kind of not have a harsh break. Leave it a little bit of a slope, and then I'm gonna take one more piece and fill this section in right here. So what I'll do is just kind of flatten out anything that I need to do, any final forming, and then make sure no flaps are up, make sure everything's nice and covered. If I want this back a little bit more around here, That way it leaves me a little bit of room. And then take this out of the way here. Alright, and so this is what the mountain looks like now. It's gonna have a good definition. There's that paper worked in real well. That's, like I said, I'll just dab this. Try not to mess the plaster up too much. It is messy, so you know that's the unfortunate thing. But you know, all in all, I think that turned out pretty well for us. And you know, we have plenty of more scenery work to do, and you know, as you can see the mountain down there. We're gonna be messing around with that one, doing kind of the same stuff. But yeah, I ran out of the cardboard paper, but we got a whole bunch more and a bunch of newspaper, and we're just gonna get at it. So we'll let that dry overnight, and we'll start working on the big one next time.